And from there on, I took on a position at Deloitte Consulting as a manager. And I got an opportunity to work with Carlsberg, that you may know, the brewery in Denmark.
Okay.
That needed to do a major consolidation of the IT world. And I was sitting there as the program manager. And suddenly there was like a lot of things going on. Like I counted that I suddenly worked together closely with about 50 people. And I was told I was responsible for their delivery in the program, right?
Wow.
And I just said, oh, I need skills. I need to be able to manage this project, this program. And that's where I suddenly it was epiphany for me. I'm a project manager, right?
Yeah.
And from there on, I went into the company I'm working for now, primarily as what's called an enterprise strategy consultant. But again, the thing I did was project management.
Hi, welcome to Monday Management Talk Season 2. My name is Dinesh Sabnani and I'm on a mission to help corporate professionals to make their next career move in project management. Monday Management Talk is a project management series. In this Season 2, we are inviting folks who have built successful careers in the field of project management and they will be sharing their experiences. Our today's guest is an acting principal project manager. He will be sharing his life experiences and perspective about the field of project management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a journalist turned project manager, a dear friend, and an ever-charming personality, Peter Habel. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Dinesh. I'm good.
Yeah, and maybe you want to say something about yourself?
Oh, yes. I'll let me introduce myself. So my name is Peter Habel. I live in Denmark, north of Copenhagen. And perhaps for some of you, Denmark may not be familiar to you. You don't really know where it is. It is in Europe. So it's part of the southern part of Scandinavia. So if you have a picture in your head of Europe, it's on the north part, right? That's up there. It's primarily a peninsula and a lot of islands. So a lot of sea around me, a lot of water. Yeah, it is nice. It is nice, but also it's a very small place, very small place. So as growing up in Denmark, we have 5 million people, perhaps 5 million people here in Denmark, right? So we're a tiny drop in the human ocean, right?
Wow.
So yeah, it is. And also, even though Denmark is very small, it's not really crowded as such, right? So you'll find places around you where you can be silent. And even I can look at Sweden, it's very close to where I live. And out there you can drive for more than 2,000 kilometers just north up towards the Arctic Circle and even beyond that, right? So it's very different from Southeast Asia,
right,
and most people places in the world, right? So I'm very privileged, and also due to my background, I may have a different attitude to life that may seem spoiled to somebody, but I prefer to be privileged, and I realize that I am very privileged.
And cut to what we have been working together, right? I mean, I just remember some projects that we have done. Like I think before pandemic, we did one project together, and recently also we finished one, and it was like a great working with you. And I thought whenever I get a chance to interview somebody, you will be definitely in my list. And this particular series, which is Monday Management Talk, it is dedicated to the project management. And this particular season, I'm inviting folks who have built successful careers in the field of project management. So with that, Peter, I want to know how you started your journey in project management.
Oh, let me try to not elaborate too much, right? but it's actually something that came naturally, right? By desire, I wanted to work with special areas in business, and I wanted to take on responsibility. And when it came to looking at work as something you execute and you're told what to do, and the responsibility part, moving from the contributor to the one that actually has take on responsibility for things getting done. That was when I moved towards project management. I have a different background, so I have a master in business economics and business and public relations. And I actually worked as a journalist in my very early career.
Wow.
And writing about technology, right?
Okay.
Because that was kind of my thing. I was really interested in technology and what it could do for people, how it could enable people. And I actually ended up in a position where I did what's today is called adoption and change management.
Okay.
That part, and that time it was more called training, facilitation, change management in general.
Right.
I did a lot of training of people in technology, right? How to use different programs, how to make sure that everything was adopted towards business requirements. So in that sphere, and I got the opportunity to work on a larger change management program for the public sector in Denmark. Implemented a knowledge sharing program.
Right. Okay.
And that was enabled by some databases and other things. And I realized that without somebody taking the steering of this, it would just like float into out of control. Right. So I actually put myself in the position of what we today would call and define as a project manager.
Okay.
It wasn't that well defined at that time. I was more seen as a business consultant, right? Because I was like taking them from where they are now and where they wanted to go.
Okay.
And as things moved on, I became part of a company that did larger change management, primarily in the ERP area.
Right.
So I did a lot of business implementation of smaller ERP segments in Barn. Was
okay. Wow.
Yeah, well, it was all about, and I'll come back to it, about people and understanding people, right? So but I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But making sure I was the enabler, making sure I could listen, and I could document, and we could execute, right? So you see the flow now, right?
Right.
But that time it was again, it wasn't really seen as project management. They define it more like program management, but in my eyes was still the same, right? As we define project management today, it's quite a few years ago, I must admit, right? 25 years ago. And from there on, I took on a position at Deloitte Consulting as a manager. And I got an opportunity to work with Carlsberg, that you may know, the brewery in Denmark.
Okay.
That needed to do a major consolidation of the IT world. And I was sitting there as the program manager. And suddenly there was like a lot of things going on. Like I counted that I suddenly worked together closely with about 50 people. And I was told I was responsible for their delivery in the program, right?
Wow.
And I just said, oh, I need skills. I need to be able to manage this project, this program. Right. And that's where suddenly it was epiphany for me. Wow. I'm a project manager, right?
Yeah.
And from there on, I went into the company I'm working for now, primarily as what's called an enterprise strategy consultant. But again, the thing I did was project management, right? So I was still making sure that I could fulfill the goals the customer has into some kind of achievement, an end goal, right? There's a start date and an end date on it. Again, defining project management.
Right.
And here I am, right?
Yeah. I'll just ask you a question. How did journalism really helped you to play different roles in your journey?
Well, that's a brilliant question. Actually, I never thought about that. It could help me, but actually, it has, right?
Yeah.
Journalism is about documenting things, right? It's
Okay.
about telling a story
Mm,
and making sure that the way you see things
mm,
is brought into something that is appealing and interesting for others and very close to what actually happened. So what I think journalism has brought to me, the skill set, is
mm.
knowing that you need a toolbox
Right.
because
Yeah.
journalism as such is not really complicated long as you know exactly what tool to use, right? If you have a nail and it needs to be banged into a board, don't use the saw, use the hammer, right?
Correct.
It's
Yes.
not that complicated. And then you get better and better at it.
Mm,
So what I realized is that you need a tool set, right? You need not only knowledge, but you
right.
need tools, right? So that's
Mm,
actually something I learned in journalism, right?
mm,
That you need
mm.
tools. And
Right.
that is very, very, very important as a project manager. You have tools to control things, to follow up,
Exactly.
right? To
Exactly. I
manage in
mean,
general.
if I just get to what we are doing right now, right? It's all about the tools that we are using to make things happen, to basically take the input, make it, amend it with the tool and take it to the output, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much like what you said about journalism, about documentation, and about using of tools is so much related to what exactly we are doing as maybe a miniature activity in project management, right? What I want to ask you next is when you really thought of that you are actually managing the project, your thought came when the magnitude of the work increased or the size of the team increased. What exactly was that point?
At first, when I realized I needed to be able to persuade people that I had things in control, it was actually the number of people I was working with,
Okay.
because um, I knew that there were different streams and
Mhm.
activities,
Mm,
um, but actually being able to quickly document status and progress was what was really, really important, right? And
mm,
because I was, as a program manager, my role was actually to make sure that the board members of that program,
mhm.
which was massive, right? It was really big.
Okay.
My part was, in my mind, big, but the
Mhm.
other parts were
Mhm.
vastly bigger, right?
Wow.
It involved 300 people.
Right.
And I was just a tiny bit here, but they needed input.
Mm,
So a lot of things we were doing needed to fit into a timeline. In order
right.
to justify that we are on the track, I needed simply to be able to document it, to have a method in order to do
Mhm.
it. And that's where I realized that I needed a different approach than just running a light and making sure I was in the enabler, right? I needed also to make sure I documented things, that I knew exactly where we were and understood risks, right? And could convey risk and mitigate them. And suddenly I needed to dig down to the full understanding of project management.
So you just took the reference of being an enabler, right?
Yes.
What do you think? What different kind of hats that we have to wear when we are playing a role of a project manager?
I believe strongly in making sure that people feel enabled and empowered.
Hmm.
If I, as a project manager, want to control every single decision
Okay.
that are taken on every single level,
Mm-hmm.
I will become a bottleneck,
Right.
and I will be inhibiting the progress as it could potentially be. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it's not about making sure we uh, keep to a timeline as long as it may be. It's about making sure we make progress as fast as possible, in my
Right.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
So my approach is really to make sure people feel comfortable taking decisions and understand the difference between large decision, important and impacting,
Right.
that really should be discussed within larger forums,
Yep.
and small decisions, right?
Yep.
And depending on the people we work with,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's really important that I start learning how
Mm.
they think and
Okay.
what their capabilities are, right? And then I can push more and more responsibility onto them. So that is in my mind really important, not to make sure that the work on your plate as a project manager gets too large and
Mm.
you cannot really keep up with the amount of work you need to do. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
that's something I feel is key to how I've been successful in how
Yeah.
I manage projects.
Yes. Yes. What do you think by wearing a hat of a coach will help the team as being a project manager?
Trust,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So as project managers, we also need to be kind of the shield towards a team that needs to perform.
Okay.
And
Mm.
when you look at a project, it has a defined start date with a scope and defined end date
Mm.
with perhaps a different scope. And the
Right.
dynamics in between there could be many, many, many different things.
Right.
Some of the discussions you're having there are very pleasant. Others are like more challenging, right? And
Yeah.
it's the more challenging stuff that I need to make sure that people feel comfortable also engaging in to
Mm.
solve things. We cannot just because things get different in the way we thought they would, that people start working, so to
Right.
say, get
Yeah.
holded up. So my
Mm.
role as a coach is making sure that they feel comfortable coming to me, reaching out to others, taking their own decisions again, right? That's really
Right.
important. And
Yes.
engaging with people. So when we're not talking like we are now, that things still happen, right?
Right. Mm.
And they feel empowered, right? And people make mistakes. I make mistakes, right? All the
Mm-hmm.
time. I misinterpret things. I misunderstand things, right? Which is really
Mm.
embarrassing sometimes. But it
Yep.
happens, and that happens for everybody. And people need to realize that it's part of the learning path to
Right.
becoming better
Yeah.
and better. And that never, never, ever, ever ends, right? It continues on,
Mm. Mm.
both as a professional and also as a human being. And that's where coaching come in, right?
Correct. Right. I mean, it's so relatable to what exactly we have been doing these days, right? We try to wear a servant leader hat sometimes, or try to wear a coach hat sometimes, and we just ask questions so that it triggers a thought process within our team so that they can solve the problems by themselves, right? And try
Yeah,
to be an autonomous team so that they can function themselves within it, right? And it's so important, like as project managers we cannot be everywhere, right? And we cannot solve each and every problem of the team what they have, right? But you pointed it right. If they have that support system, if they have that people to reach out kind of a feeling, right? And they feel like that they are supported at every stage of their work, that enables them to do so much more than we cannot even imagine, actually, right?
yeah,
Yeah. My follow-up question to that is, like, we're just talking about the team here right now, right? But as project manager, we know that what are the project management methodologies that we have to follow, right?
yeah.
And most of the time we just follow that by book. Is either it is waterfall model or either it is agile model, right? What else is needed to be a good project manager?
I, I instantly want to go a little bit back to the coaching area again, right? Because you mentioned something that is really, really important. See, from my perspective, asking questions
Yes.
in the difference that what you're telling people what to do,
Yeah.
right? Because there's um, a fine balance, right? So
Mm.
when do you keep asking questions to get people to realize, or your colleagues to realize that they know what to do? And
Yep.
when do you start telling them, no, this is what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you start telling them, no, this is not what, this is what you need to do, you're telling them stuff,
Mm.
um, they're not empowered, right? They need to go and execute, and there could be a very good reason for that, right? So don't say that it's not needed. It is sometimes. You need to help push people in the right direction.
Right.
But when it comes to everything around that, it's people skills, right? So
Yep.
how do you relate to other people? What's your empathy for them?
Correct.
Do you have the ability to really listen? Right, and that doesn't only go to the stakeholders that is within the bubble you call a project team, right?
Right.
It's everybody around you that's impacting that bubble of a project. Because there's a lot of things impacting that, right?
Yeah.
So people skills is really something. I know it's defined as soft skills, right? But it's so much more, right? It's really about listening. And with experience comes the ability to really also feel the empathy for people, what people are actually telling you, how they're reacting to things.
Right.
And making sure that people are again feeling comfortable, right? They can actually maneuver. They're not scared to do things, right? And they grow.
Yep. Right. And just a follow-up question to that, and I mostly ask this question to everyone, right? Project management is something which is so attached to our personal life. What is that one thing that you take away from the project manager role, which you really think that is doing well with your personal life?
That's a good one, isn't it? People may actually think it's planning, right? But I actually prefer it's not to be planning. Because with a lot of planning comes the lack of adventure sometimes, right? The spontaneity of experience things you didn't expect to happen. And it may actually be kind of a flip side of my work that I'm saying I don't like to plan things when I'm in private because I like the adventure. That is not entirely true, right? I'm not a chaotic. So, but I like to make sure that I don't go in too much detail, especially if I'm traveling, meeting people, going for a walk. I like to have things open,
right,
as a contract to all the controlling things we need. But that's one thing I bring into my personal life, or I've brought in from my personal life to project management, and that is financial management.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it's really important in our personal life, right? And it may seem so boring, right? Why it makes you at ease, right? It makes sure that you know that one of the reasons you're working is actually make sure that your family, your friends, other has a support system, right?
Right. Yep.
And that is the finance that come out of your effort and all the time you're putting into the work, and that outcome I like to be in control of.
Wow.
Right. So I like to have very, very strict financial management in my personal life, right?
Very nice.
Budgeting, planning, investing, all that stuff, right?
Wow.
Because it it's enabler, right?
Very nice. Yes. Yep.
It is, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So that's the one thing I take in to my personal life from work is that.
Yeah. So your interest to finance management pulls you towards project management, or the ability to do better project management, giving you an edge to do better finance management. What is that? What is complementing?
The latter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good question. I would say that I didn't go into project management because I liked finance management. That's not the reason.
Okay.
I knew a lot about it, right? Because
Yeah.
What I studied in university was actually a lot about financing as well. It was business.
Yep.
Finance, right? So
Yes.
I learned a lot about it. I don't find it particularly interesting though, right? It's just something you need to be in control of. And why? It takes away a lot of pressure.
Okay. Yes.
Right? And the more methodical you are, the easier it is to ask all the questions that you know you will get. Right. So it could be how are you on your budget? What's your forecast for the next couple of months? We need an extension of some activities. What would the impact be? The questions that could, if you're not really having a system that could support answering this question, could take you a long time figuring out. So I like to be prepared. And that means that I need to know the financials like my own in a pocket, right? I need to know it. And that's also something I learned very early on, right? Because I got those questions from my managers, from my customers, and others all the time.
Yes.
And in the beginning, they were very tough questions. I feared them, right? Because I didn't really know if the answer I had was adequate enough or was true sometimes, because I was lacking the overview. So that's why that is something I really think is important. And also because we're usually working on the contract, right? So then it's really important that you have the financials in control, right? Yep. And I bring that into my personal life.
That is so nice. I mean, it's really similar to what I am doing actually when I got started with the project management as a career, right? And sooner, within a year of span, when I did deliver some of the projects myself, right? And cost management, which was something, is an integral part within project management, and we got to do that hands-on when we actually deliver the project. Even I got that build interest in me that yes, finance management is something that I should take away from the project management side and start managing the personal finances myself, right? And that took me to so many other avenues of investment, of trading, of portfolio management of my own. It really, I was really able to up my game in the finance management because I was doing continuous project deliveries on my job, and I was managing cost on a almost on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I would say. Yes, that's like a practice being a project manager, right? We always take charge of how much we are spending on the project. Similar practice, I was also trying to see how much I'm spending in my personal life, how much I'm saving, how much I'm investing. Is That's something very similar trait I also take away from the project management. Just I thought to add to it to what you said, right?
Yeah. And just for people listening to our talk, I would say that is something that in the beginning, when you're young,
yes,
it's all about making sure you have enough money to just support your family.
yes.
And as you get older, it's always about savings, as you mentioned, right?
Yes.
So in where I am now in life, I spent 30 years of my life making sure I save as well, right?
Wow, very nice.
Because it's important, right? To have a home, and also to have a future, also for your kids,
yes.
Supporting your parents if they need it, all that, right? So but just so people don't get scared and think they need to start having everything in control.
Yes, right.
When they're very young, that is very difficult, right? Some are very good at it, others need to learn and grow.
Exactly. And we always say project management is a learnable skill, right? And project management discipline is completely neutral. It can be applied to any industry, right?
Yes.
And having said that, as we are talking about the young people, this particular program that I'm doing is actually for the upcoming project managers, where I think there's a kind of a help or a mentorship needed when they're actually getting to start the career in project management, or even thinking of getting into this role, right? What kind of advice you want to give to the young generation when they think about project management?
So if you're a young professional and considering becoming a project manager, usually it's because you watch project managers execute. It's not because you're not aware of what project management is, right? Either you had a training in your school, you've observed others practicing project management,
Right.
or you read a book or something that leads you towards that. It's nothing that pops up. I want to be. You don't wake up and want to be a project manager. It's something that comes to you as
Correct.
an interest, right?
Right.
And I would say that the most important thing is start talking to people that actually are project managers,
Right.
because it's not a skill that suits everybody. And
Hmm.
it's really important to understand that even though project managers may seem to have a ton of responsibility, and that could be as attractive to somebody,
Hmm.
it's not something everybody feels comfortable with, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so instead of just jumping into a role that you're not prepared for, start having sincere discussions about how that would impact you as a person.
Definitely.
Because
Yes.
the better equipped you are to really realize what path you're actually choosing, the better
Hmm.
prepared you are to actually invest in the areas you need to improve in.
Right. Yes.
And everybody needs to improve, right?
Correct.
Even me as a old silverback, I need to improve. I know it, right? I think I need to learn new
Right.
methodologies, new tools, new
Hmm.
responsibilities suddenly, right? So everything changes all the time.
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely. You need to be a person that is not afraid of change,
And
constant
that's what the
change.
new terminology is figured out, right? Like the PMI is
Yes.
making a change in the title for project managers is now the change maker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
like
where,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
it's going. That's where the
yeah.
trend is going right now, because the recent times that we are going to see is more of adoption, more of change management, more of transformation projects that project managers has to wear the hat of change makers, enablers, servant leaders, coaches, right?
Mm,
And that's what will be the new requirement out of project management. And we have to be upbeat with that kind of a skill. And you also rightly pointed out in the start of the interview
yeah,
that enabling somebody is so important these days, right? That it requires for you as well as a skill to make people enable for solving their own problems. Correct? Right?
indeed, indeed. And I've always been insisting on that, right? Because it's so obvious when you look at it, especially
Hmm.
if you look at the stakeholder landscape with a project, right? And then if you're
Right.
not experienced, you could think that is the people you work with, right? But you need to take you
Correct.
need to elevate yourself a little bit to understand that all the people that actually have an interest in what you're doing and why,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that is about controlling the change that they actually want you to do. So yes, definitely, it's not only about change management. Well, there's a lot of other things, but still, it's a that's why we have the start and the finish, right? So we have something we start with, and then we need to transform it into something different, right? Yeah.
And yeah, you also rightly pointed like when you are starting new into the project management, right? Talk to people who are already playing the role. That's so important because I would say 8 years back when I thought of getting into project management, right? My just friend who actually shifted from a technical role to project management gave me the suggestion that Dinesh, you should also try this because it changed my life, I think, and it's for the better, right? And I thought, like, let me talk to a few people so that I know that what it really takes. And to be honest with you, I actually spoke to about 10 project managers within our office, and all gave me different answers of what project management is all about. And that's where it opened up my eyes. Oh, it's got to be different. And I'm sure that I'm going to give the 11th answer because this is about your style, how you manage project. It's about what you exactly feel of doing. I think project management gives you that edge of play your game.
Yeah. You need to be yourself. You need to have a personality, right? Because
Yes.
that's what actually drives change. How do you influence people to do
Yeah.
something, right? So it's that connection between you as a person and the impact you're doing, right? And that people have different approaches to that, and that's why you see so many different answers.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if you ask people about the project manager discipline, right,
Yes.
you probably get something that is very similar. But if you ask what project management is,
Yes.
what do you do as a project manager? Suddenly you just see, boom, I know that, right?
Yeah.
Because we all know what we're doing as a project manager, especially if you've been a couple of years in the game, right?
Definitely. Yes. Yes. All right, Peter. Thank you very much for joining this conversation, and it really means a lot to me. Uh, to be
It's a pleasure.
honest, like I was so thrilled to have this particular session with you, and since morning I was been thinking that what I'm really going to talk to you, and this conversation has opened up my minds as well. That yes, how I started and how we can really help others who are really sitting on the edge of thinking how to grow in this particular role, or they need to switch to this particular career, and that can open up more doors for the people, right? And they can take up management as a career path by being project manager at the first place, right? Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been looking forward to this as well. And since you asked me, I've been ping ponging around as well. And something I would like to just closing out with is an encouragement to all young professionals to trust themselves. Right, it's really
Definitely.
important.
Yes.
I have a lot of mentees,
Hmm.
and for every single mentee relationship, there's two people talking.
Correct.
And what I learned over the past few years, especially during the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
is that even very young people, we're talking about skilled people that are joined as a project manager in their very early 20s sometimes,
Right.
they can provide me with input that I can actually use for something, right? It's really, really important to
Definitely.
understand that they come with knowledge that
Yes.
they can actually teach others. So stepping into a career is making sure you trust yourself and you can
Definitely.
get other people to grow. So even me realizing that as a nearly 60-year-old, that I can still grow by aided by somebody in their 20s is
Correct.
so nice. It's so nice, right?
Really.
And that's
Really.
also what project management is about, that you grow
Exactly.
and learn all the time. So,
Yes.
and thank you very much for inviting me to this talk. I really appreciate it.
No, it's all pleasure, all us, Peter. Thank you very much for joining. And maybe a last question, where people can find you if they really need to have some talk to you.
I would encourage people, since this is also something that is posted on YouTube, as I understand, to use the comment section, right? Asking me directly about things isn't interesting, perhaps, but getting a dialogue with a community is
Yeah.
perhaps even more beneficial, right? So I'd really encourage people to use the comment section. I will be staying there and listening in and
Wow.
seeing if I can actually supply questions. So
Okay.
rather than contacting me directly, that's a two-way conversation. I would encourage people to actually use the community. It's about building that as well, right? Building your relationship to the
Yes.
community. So
Yes.
that's what I would encourage people to do.
Thank you so much for actually what I would just wanted to say at the end of the interview, right? Like, use the comment session, team and friends. Peter and I will be happy to answer all your questions, and definitely you will hear more perspectives from the people who will join and see this particular video. Thank you, Peter. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasure.
So, friends, thank you for watching this episode till the end. This was Peter Habel sharing his vast experience in the field of project management. In case you need more clarification about the role of project management and you want to talk one on one, then I am available for a one on one session on how to start a career in project management. The link to book the meeting with me is given on the screen as well as in the description. As Peter mentioned, please share your views in the comment section of this video, and Peter and I will be happy to receive and reply to your comments. Please subscribe to this channel, like and share this video with at least one person so that it benefits the community. Again, thank you for watching this video till the end. I will be coming up with one more video very soon, and till then, wish you more power and success. Thank you very much.